Is this the longest reigning SmackDown champion of all time?
Of all time. Since the beginning of history.
Is this the wrestling god?
I prefer that when the God comes out, it's kind of like GAWD, God.
Well, JBL's with us right now, folks, fans out there listening, and I know you've been excited. Everybody's been excited about this, and we're so happy to have you on the show. And we kicked the show off tonight with one of your interviews, and I said when it was finished, I think he just stole every one of my words off of my interviews.
Hey, being original is just forgetting where you stole it.
I tell people, they say, how did you come up with all that stuff? I said, listen, I stole it from somebody else. Believe me, nobody invents anything out here.
They ask me all the time about Alberto Del Rio, who's doing a great job. They say, doesn't it bother you that he stole your gimmick? I said, he didn't steal my gimmick. I stole DiBiase's. DiBiase stole somebody else's. Alberto just stole something that I stole from somebody else.
That's what we always called ourselves anyway, gypsies, tramps, and thieves. So, but how the heck you been doing?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm down here in Texas right now. It's 10 degrees hotter than hell here right now. I am dying in this heat.
Well, I tell you, you could be out here. It's topped out right now at about 111. So.
Well, and they say it's a dry heat. So is a welding torch.
I tell those folks, I said, listen, if you think it's dry, stick your head in the oven. Tell me how dry that is. But before you came on the show, we were talking about one of these fellows from TNA had his check bounced. And so he went and told everyone that his check bounced. TNA, they said he was very unprofessional because he talked about the check bounce. And I said, well, we'll talk to JBL because he's into economics and all the stuff going on around the world, and he wrote a book about having more money and having it now. I mean, is a man unprofessional to say my check bounced?
In this economy, if you get a check that bounces, I'd tell every human being on the earth that has ears. No, I don't think he's unprofessional. I heard that story. I find it hard to believe. Dixie Carter has really deep pockets, as does her family. So, I don't know what the truth is, but I'm certainly not calling him a liar. If he says it happened, it most likely happened. And if it happened to me, I would tell every human being that had ears.
Well, absolutely. There was no fellow over there in Texas that you and I know when he bounced a check on me, and I said something about it, and he got real upset, didn't he? And the fellow, he was up around Greenville or somewhere.
I know him very well. Absolutely. I tell you, I've had so many checks bounce, from promoters that, they'd write you a check and then they'd skedaddle, and you'd hope you'd run into them years later. Most of the time you never did, but when you did, it was a real pleasure. Yes,
it was. And, people ask me about what I miss about the WWE, and I said, well, I do miss a steady paycheck. And they said, well, how was it working there? I said, the checks never bounced. I can tell you that. and that made, they called me the insane clown posse for this juggalo gathering they had the other night. And they had, this is a name from the past, Buck Robley.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Kano Akbar used to talk about Buck Robley all the time. Good grief.
Anyway, Buck calls me, and he was the one booking me. And he said, the last thing he called me about, he says, they want to cut your wages again. I said, well, I've already cut them once. I don't know about that. And he said, I've worked for these guys before, and it's hard to get your money. He said, no, they've guaranteed me that everybody will have a check. I said, Buck, I don't even check my bags. I said, I don't like that word check.
No, those checks didn't work. But, not at all.
Tell the fans what you're an international traveler now, and internationally known as a book author, or you're on television all the time doing things, and you have your own radio show. Tell the fans all about what's JBL doing now.
I'm really enjoying life. I've always wanted to sit back and relax and do things I wanted to do, and that's what I'm doing. I live in Bermuda most of the time. I'm in Texas right now, but I live in Bermuda. I work for, do a show for Fox News, a business show that airs on Saturday morning. So normally during the week, I stay in Bermuda till Thursday. I fly back. I do the show on Friday morning. It airs on Saturday mornings, and then fly back to Bermuda Friday night. I'm working with some great folks in Bermuda. We're putting a program together for kids using sport for social change. It's just, I'm really enjoying working with the kids, the people that I'm working with. And I've got a few crazy things in line. I'm doing the marathon in New York, November 5th. I can't run. My back and knees are way too bad, but I'm going to walk it. I figure it takes me about 7 hours is what I figure it's going to take me, and I'm up to about 12 miles walking. So, and then after that, I'm going to climb a mountain down in South America, the tallest volcano in the world, Chirbozu in Ecuador, and my goal is to climb Mount Everest in about 4 years.
Well, I tell you, I'm always looking at the stuff on Facebook, and you're incredibly shrinking, JBL. Now, I wish I could lose 40 or 50 pounds and go out and walk 10 miles a day and up these hills. And I mean, you're like. I don't know why you just don't take a camera and document all this stuff.
Well, I'm waiting to lose a little more weight. I am the lightest I've been since I've been a teenager. I never could work out consistently in the WWE my last several years because my back was so bad, and I hated it. I hated being overweight. Hated with a big pudgy belly. Fortunately, I was a heel, so it didn't matter. But once I got done, my back started getting better. I'm walking all the time. I play golf every morning. Walk the course. It's a real hilly course in Bermuda. Of course, it's hot right now, so I weigh about as much as I weighed when I was 19 years old. I'm in the best shape of my life. I actually feel great. It's too bad I'm retired and not on TV anymore, but I'm probably in the best shape I've ever been in.
It seems like that's what we do, and when for some reason, when we're on the TV all the time, it's like we're too busy worrying about our travels and TV. And of course, you and I did when we were all there. We had to sell tickets anyway. We worried about putting people in the seats. These kids now, all they have is time to work out. And but we tend to get in better shape when we retire.
Yeah, because we finally have time to work out when nobody's looking at us. It always amazed me, the junky stuff we used to wear on television. We had the oldest knee pads, the oldest elbow pads. We had stuff that was junk. And for some reason, it never occurred to us that maybe we should have some new stuff on.
Well, you know how we were. I guess that's why you had so much success with that book you wrote, How to Have More Money Now. We didn't want to spend any money.
No, we didn't want to spend any money. It's amazing how cheap guys were. I always said Owen Hart was not really that cheap. He just enjoyed the game of not spending money. Owen Hart would ride with a couple of, not a derogatory term, fans, marks, whatever you want to call them. He'd ride with them for hours and stay with the marks, just so he could come and brag to Davey Boy that he did not spend any money for a hotel room. It was amazing what Owen Hart used to do to not spend money, and to him it was a game. He enjoyed it. It was almost a rib on himself.
Well, Brett was the same way. He had people that drove him, and he stayed in places, and he did all that stuff too. And that was going to bring me to, because I know you had a companion early on there, Dutch Mantell. Now, was there any guy any cheaper on the road? Now, they talk about...
Let me tell you how cheap Dutch was. Now, I love Dutch. I love him like a brother. He's one of the best riding companions you could ever... He would sit going down the road and just make up stories. He's one of the best storytellers I've ever been around. I don't know why that guy is not on a creative team somewhere for a wrestling organization. I think that much of him. But Dutch would literally... I never liked salad, and I love eating steak. So Dutch would come in, he would get water and nothing else because it was free, and he would eat my salad, and that's all he would have during the day.
Yeah. So
that he wouldn't have to spend any money on meals. He would actually, as soon as I'd order the steak, he would turn and say he wants Thousand Island on his salad, and he would eat my salad.
Well, he would come into the restaurant in Puerto Rico where I would be sitting, and some other guys sometimes, and sit down. He'd order his glass of water, like you said, and he would watch us, and he'd say, "You mind if I have one of those French fries?" "Sure, go ahead." "That's pretty good. You mind if I have another one?" Those are not bad. Are you going to eat all those?" "Well, no. Do you want them done?" "Sure, I'll take them." So he would have a whole meal and never spend a nickel.
I figured we drove about 50,000 miles one year. I was just guessing about what we drove, and Dutch out of that drove about 32 of them.
Yeah, and boy, I tell you
total,
what,
not 32,000, 32 miles. He drove one time from Yeehaw Junction partway to Orlando, and he drove so slow on purpose so that I would get mad and make him pull over and get back in the driver's seat. I drove Dutch. It was like driving Miss Daisy. It was driving Mr. Dutch. I drove that man all over the world.
Yeah, and he's something else. And I wanted to talk to you a minute about this Vince Russo character, because we're going to take a break in a second. I'm going to play you a clip of this Ric Flair call-in guy the other day, and we've been having some fun with it, but he talks about Russo. But this Russo, I was doing commentary a little bit there, and he spent, and Jimmy Cornette brought this up on his shoot interview the other day. I saw a clip on it where Cornette said, yeah, they had a meeting. This Vince Russo was, all he could talk about to Vince was, that's Vince McMahon, all he talked about was, him and Vince, was how much time they could give Sable on television, how he could get Sable on TV and let her go out and do her T-shirt thing, and on about Sable. And Jimmy Cornette, then Russo brought up, said, those guys with Southern accents, they don't work well on TV as commentators. So he would bump me from being on my commentary segment to put Sable out there to pull her shirt off in front of the people. But I think you had a run-in the same way with him, where did they want you to change your voice?
They wanted to change the way I talked, literally. He was talking about JR one day, and I don't get how he's working with Jeff Jarrett and Dixie Carter, two Southerners, because he was listening to JR, and he said, I don't see how anybody with a Southern accent has any credibility. They all sound stupid. And he wanted JR off air so bad. Here's the best play-by-play guy in the history of wrestling, or at least close, depending on your viewpoint. He's one of the top best, one of the tops no matter what you think. He didn't want him on air, so he didn't want me talking. He had that little stooge, Ed Ferrara, try to teach me how to talk without an accent. I said, look, I'm going to leave and go to Japan. I'm not going to talk without an accent. When he walked out one time and he told us, he said, me and Ron Simmons were walking out on stage. We're working with, I think, Undertaker and Kane, and he told Ron, he said, don't let John talk. And Ron got out there, said one sentence, and handed me the microphone on live TV. I had no idea he was going to do that. I had probably 4 more minutes and cut the best promo I could, but that's how good Ron was. But Russo really thought Southerners just sounded stupid, and he didn't want to use them at anywhere.
Well, he was the culprit behind me up and just finally saying, the heck with it, I'm leaving, I'm done with this. But anyway, if you can stay with us, we're going to play this Ric Flair clip for you, and then when we come back, we're going to talk Royal Rumble that you and I have fond memories of. So, Steve, if you'll play that clip, and then we'll be back with JBL.
Yep, okay, guys. We'll be back live on Chick Right and Roll in a few moments with the Honky Tonk Man and the wrestling god, JBL.
For the last 5 years, you've been calling me saggy ass, and I've had enough of it. Do you understand? I'm the Nature Boy Ric Flair. I'll give you respect, but you give me respect, you son of a bitch. Russo is working under the table for McMahon like he has been for the last decade to keep each and every other company down. You hear what I'm saying? It's a bombshell right now. Woo! Yes.
Actually, very loud.
I'm very loud,
disturbing a lot of customers.
Do you hear this? I'm disturbing a lot of customers. I got to get going. Do you hear this? Honky Tonk Man, you son of a bitch. Now I'm getting arrested. Do you understand? No, they call